What has been your personal experience with this process from the consulting side?
My personal experience has been that it gets results. I mean, at the bottom line, I mean, that's what it's all about, because you can have sort of these best models and these psychometrically tested and these world-renowned programs that try to attack leadership development, and they make sense on an intellectual level, but when we try to get the emotional attachment from leaders to actually do that thing that will make them successful, well, they haven't been a part of really building it. And so, if it makes sense to them, on paper, but it doesn't translate to how they're engaging with employees, how they're leading their business, how they're doing their day-to-day work, well, then we've kind of lost the end game, right? So that's where we had the most problem, from my experience in corporate America, whether I've been in a consulting capacity or whether I've been working in-house with clients.
How have you seen individual leaders respond when you're having one-on-one sessions with them?
Mm-hmm.
How do they respond?
They very favorably. One, they're very connected to, because they're very practical application of what do I do to get better, right? So it makes sense to them. It's not some ambiguous, obscure sort of be more approachable. Oh, that makes sense to me, but how do I do that? So if we know that a leader is struggling with maybe being approachable or seen as approachable, and there are perceptions around that, and they see, make an effort to go out and connect with your direct reports once a week. Make sure to stop and smile in the hallway, because maybe you're just walking down the hallway because you've got a lot of things on your mind, but your direct reports or others in the office might think that you don't care, or you're not engaged, or you're not interested in them personally. And there's just so many specific and simple ways that they can start to address the things that get in their way of leadership.
What about this process has made it easier for leaders to engage it and make it work for them after you're gone and your meeting's over?
That's a great question. I think it starts from the very beginning. The fact that the process itself includes leaders from the get-go. So we don't want to take something right off the shelf and say, hey, doesn't this make sense? Intellectually, I'm sure it does. And I've worked with some of the biggest models that are out there, and absolutely no one would disagree that, yes, these are the competencies, these are the skills, these are the things that leaders need to do to be successful. But this process engages the leaders from the beginning to say, what are the competencies this organization needs? And while you might be able to select from the bigger list, you get to make it very specific to the organization. What does that look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like, taste like, here? And when we get that specific and we engage them in that conversation, by the time it moves down the line, they've been measured against it, and their results come back, the action plan's already built. It's just a matter of doing that thing, or doing those 5 things. And we don't have to reconvince them or re-examine, okay, what does it mean, for example, and I'm using it's kind of a simple one, to be approachable, right? If I need to be more focused on business results, what in this organization does that look like? And get very specific, because I want to know it's going to actually make a difference. So all the work, all the sort of guesswork that we kind of have with leadership development models, like we think it works, they say it works, studies show, I can tell you that they don't, oftentimes, especially lower in the organization.
Have you seen this work well? Speaking of lower in the organization, have you seen this work well in terms of turning the light bulb on of insight for what I would call this kind of basic rank and file, not particularly charismatic leaders, but the kind of leaders that populate the bulk of a large organization?
So kind of those frontline leaders?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see at the front line, I think the powerful application of this model is that it's so connected to what they say, what they do, how they behave on a day-to-day basis. They see themselves not only in the results, but in the actions we say that can make them better and more experienced at these things and grow in that area. That's where the light bulb comes on. It's very real for them. It's not abstract. It's not ambiguous. Their people are saying these things about them, and they know very specifically what to do. So rather than feeling concerned or skeptical that it will work, and even if they do these things, will somebody notice? Will they be rewarded or recognized for that? It's so basic, so practical, so black and white at that point that they just need to do that thing and immediately the results show up for them. I mean, I think real-time employees respond the minute they start acting on these things.
How does this process address the frustrations you've had when you've been on the buying side, when you've been in your corporate roles?
On the buying side in terms of leadership models?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Say that a different way, Rob, because I think I know what you're getting at,
Yeah,
but.
let me think about my question
Okay.
a little differently.
Okay.
Presuming you've had some frustrations with leadership development processes that you've seen in your corporate buying side,
Mm-hmm.
what about this process alleviates those concerns or frustrations that you've had with other leadership development processes that you've been involved with?
Kind of and even as a consultant, I would suspect.
Sure.
Right,
Either
okay.
way, yeah.
All right, so from a consulting perspective, when I'm thinking about models that I could apply for my clients, and this is true whether I'm working inside an organization or whether I'm working on the consulting side and working with a variety of clients. I'm a results-driven person. So number one, I'm looking for the thing that I think can get me the result that I need. And that, again, is true for corporate America, it's true for my clients when I'm working in consulting. So I'm going to look for the most practical and tactical way of getting them to the end game. So if they need leaders to be more this, I'm going to look for the model that can do that. And again, the issue for me is when we look at some of these larger models that are world known and commonly used, the barrier is two things. Number one, from a consulting perspective, it sounds very much like I've prescribed the solution, right? So rather than partnering with my client, internal or from a consulting perspective, they're now viewing me as pushing something on them. It's my idea, it's my approach, it's someone else's approach. And right off the bat, I've already created an unnecessary barrier. And if we even remove for a minute the fact that that while they make sense on paper, they may not get us the result that we want, having that kind of a barrier and always fighting against, this is my idea, this is somebody else's idea, this is somebody else's approach because so-and-so created it, now we're bringing it to you. The thing that then influences, from a positive standpoint, whether I'm in an organization or working with a client, is I can talk about an approach that not only gets results, because that's the most important thing, but now I can talk to them about how they'll partner with me to build it. Because I come with an external perspective no matter what. I'm not maybe in that business unit or working in that role or leading those people. So whether I'm in an organization or I'm consulting, I'm always the outsider. I bring an outside perspective and it's extremely valuable, but I am nothing without that internal perspective. This allows me to harness that in a way I can't do with some of the bigger models. I mean, they are helping to build it, they are part of the design, and we are working together, and it's that intersection between my outside, maybe broader perspective and their internal, deeper perspective. When those two things come together, it's almost so simple, you have to remind them of the work that they've done, right? Because it's so counter to probably their experience in the past with similar things.